We're going to talk about Halloween. Gee whiz, Halloween. You know, when I was a kid, we had 6 kids in my house, and Halloween came around. If you didn't go out trick or treating, you were nuts. It was free candy. I mean, all we knew was, you dress up, some kind of a costume, and I always favored dressing up as a hobo because it was easy. Didn't have money to go buy costumes. But you go out with a pillowcase and fill it up with candy, come home, dump it out, go back and load it up again. I mean, we had so much candy in our house, it was ridiculous. Little did we know. I mean, we knew nothing about this crazy holiday. It just looked like fun for kids. And I imagine there's a lot of people out there today who feel the same way. I hope they watch this. By the end of this video, they'll feel differently. The word Halloween comes from medieval England's All Hallows Eve. In the Old English, hallow meant saint. However, many of these customs predate Christianity, going back instead to Celtic practices associated with November 1st, the beginning of winter, and the Celtic New Year. Witches and other evil spirits were believed to roam the earth on this evening, playing tricks on human beings to mark the season of diminishing sunlight. Diminishing light, celebrating darkness. Bonfires were lit. Offerings were made of dainty foods and sweets, and people would disguise themselves as one of the roaming spirits to avoid demonic persecution. October 31st was the eve of the new year in both Celtic and Anglo-Saxon times, and was the occasion for one of the ancient fire festivals when huge bonfires were set on hilltops to frighten away evil spirits. The date was connected with the return of herds from pasture, and when laws and land tenures were renewed. The souls of the dead were supposed to revisit their homes on October 31st. And the autumn festival acquired sinister significance with ghosts, witches, hobgoblins, black cats, fairies, and demons of all kinds said to be roaming about. It was the time to placate the supernatural powers controlling the processes of nature, and, in addition, Halloween was thought to be the most favorable time for divinations concerning marriage, luck, health, and death. It was the only day on which the help of the devil was invoked. Many of the ancient peoples of Europe marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter by celebrating a holiday in late autumn. The most important of these holidays to influence later Halloween customs was Samhain. Looks like Sam Hain, the god of death, pronounced Samhain or Samhain, a holiday observed by the ancient Celts, a tribal people who inhabited most of Western and Central Europe in the first millennium BC. Among the Celts, Samhain marked the end of one year and the beginning of the next. It was one of 4 Celtic holidays linked to important transitions in the annual cycle of seasons. Samhain began at sundown on October 31st and extended into the following day. According to the Celtic pagan religion known as Druidism, the spirits of those who had died in the preceding year roamed the earth on Samhain evening. The Celts sought to ward off these spirits with offerings of food and drink, and they also built bonfires at sacred hilltop sites and performed rituals, often involving human and animal sacrifices to honor druid deities. Does all that sound like something we should be imitating? And do we really want our children dressing up like witches and demons, roaming about the streets and demanding offerings from strangers, imitating the abominations mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 10 through 12? Verse 10, "Let no one be found among you who makes his son or daughter pass through the fire," referring to sacrifice. "One who uses divination and fortune-telling, or a user of magic, or one who practices witchcraft, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer." Verse 11, "Or one who casts a charm or spell, or a medium, or a spiritist, or a necromancer," that is, one who calls up the dead. Verse 12, "For whoever does these things is an abomination, utterly repulsive to Yahweh. And because of these abominations, these detestable practices, Yahweh, your Elohim, drives them out before you." And by the end of the first century AD, Romans blended local Samhain customs with their own pagan harvest festival honoring Pomona, the goddess of fruit trees. And some scholars suggest that the game of bobbing for apples is derived from this pagan harvest festival honoring Pomona. Samhain was abandoned only when the local people converted to Christianity during the Middle Ages, a period that lasted from the 5th to the 15th century. And the Roman Catholic Church often incorporated modified versions of older religious traditions in the interest of winning converts. For example, Pope Gregory IV in the 8th century, in an effort to get the people to quit the festival of Samhain, invented All Saints' Day. Over the years, the evening before All Saints' Day became known as All Hallows' Eve, All Hallowed Eve, All Hallow Even, and finally, Halloween. Een being an abbreviation of evening or eve, Hallow Eve, Halloween. This was an attempt to get the people to turn away from the disgusting observance of Samhain. All Saints' Day was intended to honor the martyrs of the Roman persecutions, but it didn't work. In fact, it never works to take any pagan holiday and try to soften it with changes that make it okay. Or, like today, a lot of churches, we're doing Halloween, to draw them in so that we can steer them towards Christianity. It doesn't work. What is Kodesh and what is profane cannot mix. Druid priests used to go from house to house, demanding all sorts of foods to offer to Samhain. If the village people would not give them the foods, they would speak a curse over the home. History claims then that someone in the family would die within a year. Does the Halloween catchphrase trick or treat ring a different bell for you now? And when the Druids were going house to house seeking food for Samhain, they would carry a large turnip that had been hollowed out. A face was usually carved on one side and a candle placed inside to provide light as they walked from house to house. The Druids believed a spirit inhabited the turnips and helped the Druids carry out their curses and spells. The name of the spirit eventually became Jock. Does the Halloween catchphrase, Jack-o'-lantern, ring a different bell for you now? It's no longer turnips, now it's pumpkins, but there's probably spirits attached to each one of those pumpkins that have candles in them and faces of demons carved in them. In America, Halloween lost popularity in the 1920s and 30s when young hooligans started using it as an excuse to commit vandalism. By the 1950s, town leaders curbed vandalism and focused on celebrations on school-aged children, and trick-or-treating's popularity grew and helped make the holiday second only to Christmas, commercially. Americans spend a cool $6 billion each year on Halloween. $4 billion is spent on costumes, decorations, and parties, and another $2 billion on candy consumption. Today, people take pumpkins, carve the faces of demons into them, and then light them up to give them life. At Halloween, there will be apple bobbing, divination, fortune-telling, haunted houses, candles lit, and spirits called up. There will be seances and Ouija boards in the name of fun and excitement. All portals and doorways, opening people up to the demonic realms, to demonic attachments and strongholds in their lives. There will be sacrifices of dogs, cats, rats, chickens, goats, and even humans. The plain and simple fact is that the roots of Halloween are found strictly in demonic idolatry. Romans 12:2 certainly applies. Stop being conformed to this world with its superficial values and customs. Rather, be transformed and progressively changed as you mature spiritually by the renewing of your mind, focusing on Elohim's values and ethics, so that you may prove for yourself what the will of Elohim is, that which is good and well-pleasing and acceptable, and what is the perfect desire of Elohim in his plan and purpose for you. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 21. You cannot drink both the Adon's cup, the master's cup, and the cup of demons. You cannot share in both the Adon's table, the master's table, Elohim's table, and the table of demons, thereby becoming partners with them. Whenever as lighthearted, as innocent as you might think it is, whenever you make agreements, whenever you join in on these things, you're making agreements. You are becoming partners with the forces behind them. As for me and my house, we will worship Yahweh. My partnership is with him. I will not partnership with things like Halloween. Halloween is the highest holy day of all the satanic holy days.